it's nice, and I can't wait to actually start to see people in person and be able to shake hands and give hugs to whoever's comfortable and all that stuff. But this is good. So thanks to technology, we can do this, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So John, I'm being rude to our viewers and our subscribers because you and I have known each other for a really long time. I'm not giving away years, so don't worry about that. But maybe you can share with us who you are and your title at your current location.
So my name is John Mihalio. I'm the Director of Customer Financial Services. Sometimes I just use Director of Credit because certain people won't understand the first. I work for the Movado Group Incorporated at the corporate headquarters here in Paramus, New Jersey. I'm coming up on my 16th anniversary with Movado Group.
Wow, it's been that long, huh?
Yeah, time goes fast.
You know what? I'm starting to sound like my parents used to sound when I say stuff like that, but it's very true. So John, you said you're with Movado, and I know that lots of folks recognize that name. But there's probably some things about Movado that I think most of us and most folks don't really know. So can you share with us a little bit about the stuff that we probably don't know about Movado?
So Movado, the Movado brand itself, our primary brand, is a Swiss watch. To be considered a Swiss watch, you have to be the majority of the components need to be sourced in Switzerland, and the watch needs to be assembled in Switzerland. So that's what defines a Swiss watch, such as a Rolex, a Movado,
Yeah.
and some of the other luxury brands out there. But Movado is a U.S. company. We're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. As I said earlier, we're headquartered here in Paramus, New Jersey. And we own a couple of additional brands. We own a millennial brand out in Los Angeles called Movement. We own the Olivia Burton brand, which is in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
We own a couple of other higher end brands that are sold primarily in Europe and the Middle East. One is Ebel, one is Concord. And we also make the fashion watches for Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Lacoste, Coach, and the most recent one that we added was Calvin Klein. So we make all their watches too.
Okay, so I bet that's a bit of a surprise to a lot of folks. So you mentioned that the title is Director of Customer Financial Services, and what does that entail? I mean, what kind of functions or what functions are you responsible for?
So primarily the credit, the company risk, which is beyond customer credit. It's now evolved into our e-commerce risk, vendor risk. A lot of the news in the last year has kind of shifted some of the responsibilities, and also the collections and the accounts receivable or cash application. When I started here 16 years ago, it was simply for the U.S. But we've kind of, some people call it empire building. We've called it, we've gained efficiencies. We've eliminated positions, consolidated. So my group now is global. We handle the credit and AR for pretty much the entire Movado, operation worldwide.
It's funny that you say that because I actually think that that's a trend. Having been a part of the Credit Research Foundation now for a couple of years and getting more insight and access into all the benchmarking and the survey stuff that they do, there's a significant percentage of the membership now that has some sort of international or export or global responsibility. And that wasn't the case, as recent as 5 years ago or 7 years ago. So I think maybe you were ahead of the trend on that one. So that's interesting that you share that. So any major projects or new interesting things that you're working on that you can share? I don't want to put you on the spot and,
Well, we have a couple of things going on. We had a joint venture in Spain for a number of years, and we've bought out the joint venture, and we're bringing that live onto SAP on February 1. Our fiscal year ends January 31st, so the timing of that. So that's been taking up a lot of our time in the past couple of months. My group here in the US, we just finished implementing a resale tax certificate solution with Alvarez.
Okay.
So, that kept us busy. A couple of audits that were by some of the states.
Oh, those are always fun.
Yeah, that kind of forced our hand into coming up with something a little bit more functional than running into the closet to see if we have the certificate on file.
Yeah.
One of the big things last year is kind of was a result of of two things: the pivot during COVID to more of an e-commerce solution. So we do a lot of our websites became fully developed. We sell a lot online right now. We do a lot of the e-commerce fulfillment for some of the major retailers in both Europe and the US, such as Macy's. So when you buy a watch on Macy's.com, we're actually doing the fulfillment on that. And the war in Ukraine and the sanctions that went out on Russian oligarchs really caused our legal team to mandate that, it's not just know your customer and know the Macy's and the Zales and the Sterlings of the world. But it's to know every customer that we're dealing with, whether it's the consumer on the website, whether it's new vendors being added. So we really had to go out and search for some robust solutions to cover that. And there weren't a lot of out there, there was really only one, and, we've kind of implemented it and it's going very well, but my group is taking on a whole nother level of work and vetting of kind of everybody we do business with.
It's funny, like when I started in credit, I had no idea what I was doing. And, I started as the AR clerk for a big shipping company. And then I was introduced to the world of credit and AR, right? Which I think is not unusual for most of us in credit. It's always kind of a strange, serendipitous type of story. But I quickly found out that there's really never like a dull moment in credit. There's always something new. And just when you think, okay, I got this, I figured this out, I know how to do my job, something like what you just mentioned now, forces you to find new solutions and get creative. And there always seems to be a new challenge, right?
As forensic accounting, it's really getting into the interesting stuff. It's not debits and credits. It's not just paying the bills. It's really digging deep and, using the internet and using different searches, options to look and networking with your fellow credit people to find out what they're doing. You're looking at the news to see what's going on economically in certain markets. So it's a lot more interesting and exciting than straight up accounting, in my opinion.
You know what, I tend to agree with you, but I've always been a fan. I still consider myself a credit person, even though I've been on the outskirts of practicing day-to-day credit for a number of years now, but always one foot in the credit world. And I still love it. So, okay, we're coming up on near the end of our interview. And I want to ask you, and I just mentioned a little bit about my first job in credit and AR, but I love asking people this question because I hear the wildest, craziest stories. And I hear over and over again, like, I've never met anybody that said I wanted to grow up and be a credit manager. Never met anybody that said I, went to college and I couldn't wait to become a credit manager. Like those words just don't exist. So I love asking people this question. So if you don't mind sharing with us, what was your first job in credit and AR?
So I came out of college with a business degree with a marketing concentrate. And of course, you're never going to get a job in the marketing department designing, and doing putting commercials together right out of college. So I got a kind of a business job with a local air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration type wholesaler in New Jersey that had a number of retail stores.
Okay.
And it was a true management trainee position in that you were going to go in, work in the corporate office for 2 years in various roles to learn the total business, and they were ultimately training you to manage one of their stores, and they were primarily located in the Northeast. So I did 6 months in customer service. I did 6 months in inventory management. I did 6 months in the credit department, and I did 6 months in one of the local New Jersey stores. So they were about to make me an offer. As I recall, I think it was in Worcester, Massachusetts, to go up and manage it. And I'm like, I don't want to move to Worcester, Massachusetts, you know. So what are my options? How can I delay this? I happened to be talking to a friend that I was doing volunteer work, and I was telling her about my job and everything. And she's like, oh, I work in the credit department at Polaroid in Paramus. I go, really? She goes, yeah, we're actually hiring a credit analyst. I go, oh, you're kidding. I go, I love that credit. Got her my resume, kind of tailored it up and, elaborated more on the credit. She took it in, I interviewed, I got the job. And that was the start of it. Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say,
so,
right?
And I was thinking about it. I go, well, a lot of it is, what it says on paper, but a lot of it is your interaction. And one thing that disappoints me today, I get the work from home. I get the benefit that people have with that. I work from home a couple of days a week, but my group, we've gotten so efficient at it that my analysts, cash application analysts and credit analysts, they're only required to come in once every 2 weeks. And that's all they want. They don't want to come in. And I have a seasoned group, and I have young people that we're developing and promoting. Mm-hmm. And when we were talking about doing this, and I was thinking back on my career and some of the different questions we were considering, I'm like, when I think of whether it's the top 10 or the top 20, favorite times I had in my work career, I don't think any of them involved a Zoom call or a Teams meeting. They were all stuff that happened with people, an interaction, a customer visit where I ran into Kevin Bacon in a watch store in New York and got to speak to him, or somebody pulled a prank in the office and everybody was all broken up about it, or just stuff like that. I remember one time I was going on a business trip, and my wife and daughter were coming out, and we were going to do like a long weekend before the business trip in California. So we were at Newark Airport, and they went to use the ladies' room. And here comes down the hall, here comes yourself and Carrie Prada.
Oh, that's right.
So the two of us were talking. I think you guys were going to a meeting in Florida, right?
Yes.
So as you guys were leaving, my wife and daughter were coming up from the opposite way. My wife's like, well, who's that? I'm like, oh, I know them from work. Yeah, well, where do you know them from? So my wife was like, who are these two young ladies you're talking to in the airport? And that's just like a human thing that doesn't happen as much now. I mean, we don't travel as much anymore, and we do things like this. So that's a little thing that I find a challenge, and I hope I can get across to my group that, all right, you don't have to be here 5 days a week, but you're really missing a lot if you're only coming in once every 2 weeks.
Well, I think that's a great way to close our conversation. And I think this is probably a small little attempt at showing people a little bit about the kinds of, long-term relationships and friendships that you get to create, not only being in credit, but participating in things that force you to interact with the people in your department, people in other teams within your own organization, people in your different associations and credit groups. I was a better credit person. I think I was a better human being, and I learned so much just from talking to people, even if it was standing on the buffet line and asking somebody, so where do you work and what do you do? And you don't even realize that it's all part of the learning process. So I couldn't agree with you more. And John, I can't thank you enough for making the time. I know how much stuff you have going on, and I know this is your fiscal year end. So I am so grateful that you made the time to do this. And I hope that all the folks that are watching and the folks that are going to subscribe to the YouTube channel will be inspired by you and the things that you've done. And hopefully we can bring you back in a couple of months and you can share some of the progress on the projects that you shared with us.
Sure, no problem, Yesinne. I hope it's helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Okay, take care, Yesinne.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.